Okay. All right. So yeah, we can start with introductions. Um, I will start. My name's Jennifer Leonard. I'm the chair of PMAC. I almost said PMAC, chair of the Southwest Corridor Park Alliance. We have had the new name for a year, and I was just ready to say we don't really need to say formerly PMAC because I think people have come to know the new name because it was last year at the annual meeting that we chose the new name. And so introduce and pass to, and I live in Mission Hill and garden and bike and children's programming. And I will pass to David.
Hi, I'm David Ween. I have been on the PMAC for about a dozen years. I'm sorry, on the Southwest Corridor. I was on the PMAC for 11 years and the Southwest Corridor Park Alliance for one.
Yep.
And I live in Roslindale, so I'm not actually on the corridor, but I do spend a good deal of time traversing it. And I'm mostly involved with issues of the path, and though also spent some time this year working with DCR on the action plan that they've been preparing. I will pass on to John.
I'm John Burke, and I live in the South End, and I have been on this committee now for going close to 5 years, I think. And my activity on the corridor pretty much consists of just walking my dog 3 or 4 times a day along the Southwest Corridor. So I'm often out there. And I will pass it on to Tracy.
Thanks, John. I'm Tracy O'Brien. I live in JP. I think I've been on some version of Parkland Management Advisory Committee / Alliance for 32 years, something like that. I think around 30 years ago, I was actually vice president of the committee. And like I've had different roles, but I love the park and all the things that one can do on the park, but also all the great people you meet and get to work with and volunteer with. So it's been a privilege to be involved with this park and to live adjacent. Currently, I am the chair of the community gardening subcommittee, and I'm very excited because soon I'm going to have a co-chair who you will meet soon. And on that note, I will pass to Sabine.
Hi all, I apparently will be the new co-chair of the garden subcommittee. My name is Sabine. I've lived in JP for 23 years and I have been gardening in JP for 22 along the Southwest Corridor Park at the Lamartine Hubbard Community Garden, which is close, the one at Stony Brook T-Stop. And I've been a coordinator there for 14 years. Yeah, so that's why I'm here, and I'm gonna pass it on to Scott.
Hello, I was the voice in the darkness that no one could see when the police were on. My name is Scott Romney. I just got a message from Franco saying his Zoom won't open, but he's trying to join. I'll help him out. I am been in South End for 2.5 years, but I've been in Back Bay for about 8 years before that. I've been part of the PMAC, I think since 2017. And I'm the vice president of the Conservancy here in South End as well. I'm responsible for maintaining the dog park, and I own a leaf blower. So I am just very busy these days, just blowing people's stoops and anything I could potentially help out with. John, I just got your front stoop, by the way.
Oh, good. I was wondering when you were going to get to that.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Thanks, Scott.
But I will pass it on to Jordan.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I go to Northeastern. I am a senior and I'm a community ambassador in the off-campus office. And I think that's all I was supposed to say. It was nice to meet everyone. I'll pass it on to Shraddha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shraddha Mishram, and I work as a community ambassador again with Jordan, as in the off-campus engagement and support. I live in Roxbury, which near the Nubian station, and our office just helps for students to find their housing and help with current issues that they are dealing with housing of who live in off campus. And we also run few breakfast clubs and other community meetings. Yeah. That was all it. Thank
I
you.
appreciate all that you guys do. That's wonderful. Jenny's just texted that message that she's on the commuter rail. So Jenny Jones needs no introduction, we'll say, is the community, a garden coordinator in Jamaica Plain for the Stewardship Gardens. Let's pass to Carolyn, then Franco, then Kaliga.
Oh, hi, I'm Caroline. I moved into the South End about a year ago, so this is my first meeting at this and just wanting to listen and learn.
Oh, wonderful. So glad to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
What
Yeah.
part of the South End do you live in?
I live on Columbus and Mass Ave.
Nice.
Okay.
That's awesome.
All right, Kaliga and then Franco.
I'm glad you said Franco then Kalika.
I changed it.
Your prerogative. I've been involved in some form of the corridor since I think before we did the lottery, 89, 90. When they were getting residents to sign up to, we had a lottery to get the community gardens. Do you remember that? Anybody? When they first opened the corridor, yes, they had a lottery. So I was helping get people up for the lottery, and then I got a garden. And I was part of the lottery too. I didn't know if I'd get one, but so I got a community garden, became a steward, and have been advocating for all kinds of things. And I love the corridor very much. And I will pass it to Franco, who used to be my boss when I lived in the South End. Now I live in JP. So where's Franco?
He's on mute.
Oh.
He's old.
Franco. Come
He's
in.
actually not on mute, but he has no sound.
Oh.
I'll introduce Franco. My name's Franco Campanello. I've been in South End for 40 years. He's the president of the Southwest Corridor Park Conservancy. He loves to garden. He has a dog that is caught. Ooh, he needs to tell me
So
the
many
exact
rats.
63 rats or 64 rats. I saw it catch one right in front of my eyes yesterday. He is also a concierge at the Marriott, and he is somebody that you should probably know in South End.
Perfect. And I know he does want to talk later when we're doing the slide presentation.
And he just got back from Italy for 2 weeks and enjoyed himself.
What a good friend you are. You can speak for him. That's awesome.
And he couldn't do anything without my help. His words, not mine.
Okay, very wonderful. Excellently wonderful. Okay. This is November is always officially our annual meeting. So I'm going to open up a presentation. This is a presentation. So, like if you notice things that we can add, just throw it in the chat that you might want to clarify or add. We enjoy the presentation at this meeting, and then we send it to state reps, state senators, obviously to all the different DCR departments so that they kind of have, a nice visual of what we do. And then, city councilors or anybody. So both I and any of you can, email the link to people who we want to have see it. It will just take me a second to open that up. And yes, so sort of the presentation is sort of like fun for this evening, but it's also has a serious purpose that this is just kind of how every year people kind of enjoy seeing it and keeps some of our volunteer work visible.
It's also great, like if we apply for grants or lobbying for something.
Yep. And did that screen share work out? Yep.
Don't see it yet.
You don't? Oh, I see that. No, I'm gonna try again.
Okay, there it is.
Oh, I just unshared because I didn't have faith. All right, I'm gonna click the from the beginning, and so that's good. Okay, great, great, great. All right, and oh, so by the way, I had already complained that I had COVID for 2 weeks, and so you'll be tired of my voice because it's a little hoarse. So, hop right in, to explain when we get to something that's relevant to your neighborhood or your work. Hop in and, read the text or explain what we're looking at. First, I want to thank a bunch of you for sending photos. Tracy, Sabine, Jenny Jones has sent photos previously. Fred sent some photos. He apologized he couldn't be here. Sage sent some photos and she's traveling this week. And this photo Scott sent me. And even though you can't necessarily tell it's the corridor, it had that peaceful feeling, that kind of creative, peaceful feeling of like, I noticed it one time I was taking photos over by the dog park. I'm like, who put that birdhouse there? That is so lovely. And so I featured it as the first photo here.
Nice. Yeah, it's right next to the kids' park right here.
It's so sweet. It's just so peaceful. Yep. And so I'll just kind of introduce this part, and this is actually Scott does the aerial photos as well. And this is sort of, kind of a little bit of an overview, and I also send this in text to, people that we share this with, that, sort of our key themes, that we are connecting neighbors. And we did a lot of work this year with the action planning process, but also meanwhile, the actual in the park and behind the scenes work, just very, very creative work of a lot of our gardening work, our youth work, public safety work, basically all of the different aspects of our work, the advocacy around the bike paths, all of that work that takes place all the time. This year was the year of working with DCR on the action plan, but this also just really focuses on all the other things that we do. And this starts, and why don't you, this is, you can explain the cold frame, and then I'll just go to the other slides, some of the stuff happening in the South End. The Southwest Corridor Park Conservancy coordinates, and we're sister brother organizations. Scott, I don't know if you'd mind talking for just to explain some of these photos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The photo before that. So we last year we started putting this really big, like 5-foot star on top of, there was this tall white pine tree that, maybe it's not white pine, but a pine tree that a crazy person had climbed up and like ripped like the top 5 feet like apart to where it's only just like a stick. So we put in a star on top of that. So this is a picture of me on the top of the tree removing the star. This was after Christmas. So that's why there's different views at different times. I think there was snow on the ground at one of them. So it depends on if I was going up to take it off or to put it on. And then if Franco did have his audio working. Franco, is your audio working? Wow, crickets. This is so he had asked Lincoln and myself to make like a little kind of a greenhouse thing that we have, and it was getting just too warm, so we actually just put like a nice net underneath on it. These are I think azaleas and something else, maybe some sunflowers that are just growing in like a little greenhouse thing. This one I'm gonna mess up, and I apologize. I could not for the life of me figure out exactly what this group was
Oh,
called.
yeah. This was Carrie Erdman, the Gays for Good group.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank goodness. I'm glad that you I didn't know what it was called,
Yep.
but it was a really cool organization. That the lady to the right, she's an active volunteer. Her name is Nancy Rittenhouse, and my dog's Unleashed, which is terrible. Sorry. Yeah, they did
Yep.
a nice, really good cleanup activity for
Yep.
at least one of the days.
Yep. And this is like the classic view. This could be any group, any day, because we do, you do so much of these days. But it looks like a beautiful day.
This was just the one day Franco was gonna be out of town, and he wanted us to just introduce the park to this group.
Mhm. And I know that this is, everything has a name. This is called The Reach. It has that kind of nice British sound to it, and a before and after picture.
That's so that the picture above it is right next to one of our Victory Gardens. But it did look very much like that. I could send to you before. This is,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know why I sent that, to be honest.
No, Franco sent it.
Oh, well, he sent the wrong before.
I just noticed it because I knew it was the U's. I just noticed, oh yeah, that's a different spot because I just like quickly threw them in. But it was that row of U's and now it's this row of perennials, which is quite gorgeous.
Yeah, it's about 100 feet. I think he put a tree every 8 feet, and then a whole bunch of stuff in there. I thought he was wasting his time, but it looks good.
Mhm. And you'll keep going and then we'll switch to JP in a minute, but keep
Right.
going for a second.
And then in early May, Lincoln is the kid to the right with the glasses on. He used to live in the Colonnade residences really close. He recently moved over to West Roxbury, but he does a lot. He still comes in maybe once a month to still volunteer because he enjoys it a ton. He just turned 16. He now has a car, so I can see him not wanting to volunteer much because he's got other things on his mind, and that's awesome. But he decided to do his Eagle Scout project in the park, so he put everything together. He's proposed an area, proposed kind of a what he would like to do. He worked on it. Yeah, this is just, the top one is just a kind of an initial layout of potentially like a little garden path that we could do in kind of I forgot what we call this. There's a 2 pine trees. But it's right next to, there's a person walking like right off of West Newton. Wow, that's a cool before and after shot for sure.
And I'll show you these photos too.
But he had his scout group out there for at least 2 Saturdays. Tons of volunteers. Parents always had pizza every day that they were out there, and they did a fantastic job.
Yep. And that's one of like many things that got done this year, but that was the one that I asked for photos for because it was just like so impressive. And he has been volunteering since he was in 5th grade and just very self-motivated, very, eager to pick up new skills, really, really a gift.
Yeah.
And how great that how great to grow up in a neighborhood where you say, I think I might want to do this volunteer thing, and it just happens. So a really, really good experience. Yeah, Sage sent some information about some of their work. So Sage is one of our leadership team members, and around the Northampton Camden Street, she has become the community garden coordinator and also has been doing some kind of stewardship work. And she works at the apartment building, the CDC there. And so she kind of gets to play multiple roles. And so she sent a report just saying some of the things they've been doing, connecting with Northeastern University students for some of their cleanup days, participating with us on the master planning. We got a small grant and kind of a project called the Reckoning Project, where she's part of a group that's kind of looking at history with fresh eyes, with the hope that, something that might turn into signage or interpretive signage for the park. Doing, like a lot of folks, kind of patrolling for sharps and calling into 311. And also, I think there's a picture of a volunteer day. They've had volunteer days and set up a little free library. So it's just kind of cool to see that level of energy. Tons of other stuff that the Conservancy is also doing down around Northampton Street, and DCR putting in the monument and stuff. So that area is getting a lot more attention and activity. And Jenny is on the train, so who will speak for her? So basically it speaks for itself, which is a good thing about this. Speaks for itself. So Jenny Jones, while in the South End with the Conservancy, there's a whole network of volunteers. In JP, we also have a network of volunteers. Jenny Jones, who is, she just texted that she's on the commuter rail, coordinates that network, and it has its own energy. A few of the highlights, one just gorgeous highlight, of course, is that they planted a temporary wildflower meadow there's a space that some playground equipment had to be removed, and the space is kind of in limbo before some new landscape design goes in. And so they got permission and planted a wildflower meadow. There was some landscape cloth. There was, they got some mulch. They got some supplies from DCR, and obviously speaks for itself what gorgeous results. And then Jenny has the gift for painting, and these is the beehive mural. And as you go around in the south end, you'll see kind of the plant theme, and then in JP, you'll kind of see bees and butterfly theme. So we have blessing of a lot of different spaces to paint. And then Sabine, let's ask you to describe this a bit. And after this opening slide, I have a couple more of your slides.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so actually the beehive mural, this box is right outside the gate of our community garden, so it's on the other side. So our community garden is very, very out in the open. It's probably one of the most visible ones of all of the ones around the corridor park. I also know it's the one with the longest wait list. So, and people come by there all the time. And we had outside of our garden, like an area that was planted with these ugly, gnarly, overgrown, dying shrubs, and they were bothering us forever because we were trying to keep it clean, and we trying to weed underneath and mulch them, but there would be so much trash on there, and we were just really kind of done with that. And we asked Ben and his crew if they could remove them and allow us to use the space to plant perennials and annuals and vegetables and herbs for the community. Basically add an outside communal flower/vegetable bed for the neighbors to take. And they were super receptive. They came like, when can we come? Tomorrow, basically. So they ripped out the shrubs. They put stone border, like a border. They created a border for us, and they dumped some compost. And then he just said, "You are on your own." And then we started planting. And what you see right here is the cleanup of the when we prepared the bed. That was in May. So we were just weeding it and prepping the soil. And then this is what it looked like afterwards. So we just did the one you just saw with us prepping, the one on the lower right, that's exactly the same viewpoint. So you see we planted this huge sunflower wall. There's lots of annual flowers, but also we had like tons of tomato plants. We had eggplant, we had chard, kale, lots of herbs. And then towards, so it's the exact, it's the exact same viewpoint. And people were super on the bottom. Yeah. So this is this is when we plant. The left one is when we just planted the perennial border, which is a little bit in the shade, and these are all native perennials, and hopefully they will take. We had to cage some of them because we have some bunnies who really like to eat flowers, apparently. And then so towards the left bit, so there's a perennial border, and then there is a corner which is not so close to the bike path. The right picture shows the part that's closer to the bike path, where we have all tomatoes and all the veggies and flowers for people to pick. And we had, I've been there because I've been watering that and taking care of it, and also other gardeners have been helping. And the reception from the neighborhood was just really, really wonderful. They really loved having these things there, and it's just beautiful and productive. And so we've had very good reception. So with lots of work, but it was worth it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I remember in the spring when you had sent an email to say we're thinking about doing this thing. And so it's so much fun to see this.
Yeah, it's been really,
and I think it really kind of puts even more community in community garden, that you have like layers of different ways of using the community garden space.
Right, yeah. And I like, it's outside, and it was partly inspired by obviously Jenny, who was around, in the same area where she has a festival garden and all these other little pocket gardens that are just so beautiful all over the place. But also because the action plan meetings that were kind of heated when it came to community gardens, where many people said, like, we don't need any more community plots, we need communal spaces for everybody to, that are public, basically. Some people sometimes come into our gardens and, takes things, but for the most part, our garden plots, they are, not accessible for the public, and this is accessible, and then we made it on purpose. So, and that has been very received.
I think a lot of people outside the Southwest Corridor don't realize that we have both models, and the way we are blending them, that the community garden model is a little bit more of an individual plot, and then, forms a community within the community garden. And then the stewardship model, that individuals will adopt garden spaces within the larger park. And so being a park steward, you're maybe a little bit more limited, and it's never your space, but yet you've adopted it, and it's your heart is in that space. So it's just a slightly different model, that that whatever you plant, others can eat. So it's like two models, and that you've really blended them here. And I agree about that community meeting, where it was one of those community meetings that, like sort of almost like abstract of saying, is a community garden really community? And this really answers it. Yes, it is.
Right, it can be, yeah. So we're trying to make it really, especially because we are so much out in the open, in the court, in the community. And we have a flower bed that's so we are right on Lamartine Street, and there's a sort of raised flower bed where people walk, but it's not as accessible, or not many people walk by there. And there's raspberries and blueberries there for everybody to pick as well, but people don't really walk on the street, they walk on the corridor, they walk on the park. So now they have their blueberries and raspberries and tomatoes to pick from, right there, so they can see much more. Yeah.
Keep in mind for my next berry picking bike ride.
Yes, please come by.
I will. Yeah, no, this is so awesome. Oh yeah, so this is my project. So Jackson Square. So of course, right now, when you bike down the corridor past Jackson Square, you're biking past a construction project, the Mildred Haley Apartments. There's going to be several phases of construction along the corridor at the Mildred Haley Apartments. The first phase took down the community center, so known as the hall. That used to be a lot of public events. A lot of our arts and crafts programs were there, and so they took down a couple of the residential buildings and took down the hall, and then also the space that I used as a children's garden. And then the space that was not a Southwest Corridor Park garden, but it was a community garden managed within the BHA property. That space was also removed. The children's garden space will be re-landscaped, so it'll never be what it used to be. So that's, but all of that was behind the construction fence. With that as background, we set up a new garden this summer. And so I'll show you a couple of pictures. This is on Parker Street. So it is in spirit on the corridor. However, it's not on the corridor because that space is not there. So DCR helped us with this, the Conservancy. Franco took me shopping for plants. I had not been to Mahoney's with Franco in a long time, and it was so wonderful. And then DCR helped us with soil, some topsoil mulch, not mulch, compost. And one of the guys, Sydney, came over and helped us with the rototiller. And that was awesome. So I'll show you a couple of pictures of this. So this is along Parker Street, which is, if you're on Heath Street at the Rotary, go in Parker Street into the development. So it's just right in there. So we had teenagers from the Summer Jobs Program. This is Sydney, and a couple of the men who work for Metro Boston Alive. This is our city councilor. This is one of my foster kids. And again, this is a bunch of the teenagers and one of the men from Metro Boston Alive. So on several different occasions, we put together the 4 raised beds and then rototilled and then turned over the soil, and a couple of rounds of buying plants and putting plants in, as well as seeds. 2 pictures. One is a picture of the raised bed, and then the cilantro. One of the community gardeners, gentleman who lives in the development, said, I just want to plant cilantro. And he did. And it was really late in the season. By the time we got to this point, we're like, I hope it works. And he grew so much cilantro. It was like so awesome. And so it's sort of like my favorite thing. So that I don't know how long that garden will be there. With eventually, when the construction is done, there may be a new community garden up close to the park. Whether we also keep this, it will at least remain as at least like a flower garden. Whether it will always be community garden, teen garden, or what it'll be, we're kind of going to wait and see how it evolves. Also some pictures I didn't know until I saw some of the photos. I didn't realize the same night, the same weekend that we got Southwest Corridor Park Alliance got the Crime Watch Award. Also Claremont Neighborhood Association also got Crime Watch Award. They're, one of the neighborhood associations that works closely with the Conservancy around issues in the park. So this was, we've, as you could tell from the first part of our meeting, we have a long-time relationship with the different public safety officers. These are photos from National Night Out. Sage, me, Tracy, and Jenny. This is Patricia, who was in the background when Omar Zapata was. I didn't put the video in, but I'll save that for another time. Scott took this video of Patricia in the dunk tank and got her going down.
She is the best.
She is so good.
She's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And yes, so pictures, and thank you for sharing. I hadn't realized that Claremont Neighborhood got the similar award for D4, and then we got the award for E13 in spirit. That means the whole park, but we received it from the E13 Night Out. And then this was, we've had the tradition of doing mini grants. And so this is, the idea of the mini grants has been to have small amounts of money, like $500 to $700. We do a little bit of children's programming ourselves directly, mostly craft tables, the children's gardening, and this year the teen gardening, but continuing the craft tables, which unfortunately are not at the old hall along the park, but are on the other side of Mildred Haley because of construction, so it's not as visible. So we do a lot of our own children's programming, but also we don't have the numbers to do a ton of children's programming. And so the mini grants have kind of carried on that tradition. So we just had one this last year, which was last spring, United South End Settlements mini grant project. They did a scavenger hunt. And so the result was the children in the Club 48 did a mural where they went around the Southwest Corridor as well as Titus Sparrow Park and some other neighborhood sites with a scavenger hunt, looking for, can you find the Martin Luther King Memorial? Can you find a church made out of pudding stone? Can you find a sculpture by a famous artist? Can you find a number of different things that were part of the scavenger hunt? And took pictures and then made their mural. And they did, we always ask, if we do a mini grant, we ask them to do some social media that highlights the park. And they also did, because it's the action planning year, the staff wrote up some of their observations about signage that they thought would be helpful, or, things that they love about the park, what's really helpful when they have a group of kids, and, things they didn't know about the park until they looked into it, and, things that we should publicize about the park. Share that with the action planning team at DCR. And just another kind of sweet photo of the kids out on their trip, and then back in the center with their photos. And David, would you be willing to share this part? David here?
That would require unmuting.
Yes.
So let's see, we're talking about biking, walking, and the multimodal path. And the action plan we've been working over the last year or so, preparing for the action plan and then participating in the action plan with Amber from DCR and Gerald, who is in charge of paths. And through the overall action plan, we DCR accumulated dozens and dozens of suggestions, and based on that and their own observations, they did put together an action plan, much of which is consists of longer term changes to the paths. The path system right now is set up so that there are supposedly 2 parallel paths throughout the park, one for cycling and one for walking. I'm not sure what cycling means anymore now that we have electric powered scooters and things like that, and hoverboards and all. But in any case, there are 2 separate paths, though for much of the corridor system, the walking path is a sidewalk alongside a busy street. So one of the recommendations that we had made to the DCR probably 9 years ago, I think, was we had asked them to stripe the cycling path. And in particular, it would be valuable at times when people who are on foot use the cycling path in lieu of the unpleasant sidewalk. To help people, the idea behind the striping was to help people stay to one side or the other, which would allow us to share the path, allow us all to share the path better, more easily. And finally, as part of the action plan, this is one of our recommendations, and DCR actually ran with it as a short-term implementation. You know, they're trying to separate into shorter term, medium term, and longer term goals. So, for example, widening the path from 9 feet to at least 11 feet, which is one of the goals, is not going to happen anytime soon. Certainly not this year, next year. But they were able this year to stripe the path, and I think the feedback that we've gotten both from individuals within DCR and other advocates, and just anecdotal discussions was that this has helped to make it easier to share the path. Another thing that DCR did path-wise, and I'm not sure if it's in a slide or not. Oh, look at that. They had an intern who was available to help this summer to help implement this, and they had they've installed 2 speed monitors, and rather than show a numeric speed, which is not, I think they were afraid that that would be incentive to people to try to see how fast they could go. They have two responses. One is a smiley face, which you see on the left. That's if you're going 15 miles an hour or slower. And if you're above 15, it just says slow down. So I always have fun trying to speed up and get the slow down when I'm riding through. I'm assuming Scott's comment was someone had to be going really fast to take a picture as they were riding. I'm guessing someone was standing and took the picture as somebody else was riding, but I'm not sure. It's not my picture. We had advocated for, and it may still come to it, but we'd advocated to post a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. One of the issues is there are faster vehicles. It used to be that when people are riding their bikes, you could go at 10, 12, 14, maybe even 16 or 18 miles an hour if you're a strong cyclist. But now with electric bikes, it's very easy to go 20 miles an hour on the path. 20 miles an hour with a 40 or 60 pound vehicle is dangerous. And we can be dangerous if there were a collision. And we had advocated for a 15-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. For some reason, and they haven't really explained why, they were a little reluctant to do that, but at least they agreed to set the slow down, smiley face dividing line at 15 miles an hour. They were talking about doing it at 20, which we thought was excessive. Some of it may be related to the general issue of signage in the park, and they're trying to get a uniform, consistent set of signs. And and Tracy says maybe they're waiting for statewide standards. That's possible, but we'd like to start to establish statewide standards, and the best way to do it is to start here. That didn't fly this time, but we'll keep advocating for it. They did put up a series of signs, kind of like the political lawn signs with the little metal stakes and a little rectangular I guess plastic. that advocates for people to ride carefully and be courteous and not go too fast, stuff like that, which is generic, but it's helpful for people to see. And we're still pushing for an actual speed limit. Speed limit is not going to be enforceable, even if it had the force of law, which it probably wouldn't. I'm assuming that you're not going to have our public safety folks there with radar guns trying to catch people going 16 miles an hour or 20. That's also worth it. Yes, thank you. No mopeds also on the signs. But having at least setting that expectation so that above 15 miles an hour is too fast. It's doing that with these signs, but unfortunately, there's only one of them in each direction. And the path is 5 miles, nearly 5 miles long. So I think having more frequent signs, like at every crossing, showing what the speed limit is, or even stenciling it on the ground, as an experiment. But they didn't bite on that. I guess Fred and I could go out with stencils and do some painting. We've done that before on the ground. And then there was mention of DCR has a policy, of course, and I think it's statewide, on separated paths like this, not permitting motorized, they call them mopeds, but there are no pedals on them usually. These are the gasoline-powered scooters. I think under state law, they qualify as mopeds if their engines are small enough. And we've had situations where people are riding them on the corridor, and also people behaving really badly riding them in traffic in large groups of people. And so they put little stencils several places on the corridor at crossings, saying no mopeds, with a picture of a moped and a line through it. But also prohibited are certain types of electric bikes, of e-bikes. The e-bikes are split into class 1, 2, and 3, and DCR has a policy to allow only class 1. And we suggested that a speed limit would be better than a prohibition. One of the issues is that the mopeds tend to be used by kids of color. The e-bikes tend to be used by, and it's not exclusive and there's lots of overlap, but tend to be used by, middle-class white people. And so we're prohibiting perhaps equally dangerous vehicles from one group, but not prohibiting or making a prohibition of similar vehicles from another group. That point was acknowledged, but they didn't really do anything about it yet. It's also hard to tell what a class 2 and class 3 e-bike is, so it may be that at least a gasoline-powered moped, you could draw a line and say, this is something that's prohibited just by looking at it in comparison to electric bikes. But we digress. So that's kind of what's happened so far with respect to the paths. Another aspect, and Jen, are we gonna, does the presentation get into that?
The only other thing I had was just to mention the additional possible pathways.
Okay. Well, one thing then backing up is, excuse me, one of the things that the action plan includes is they've got some really good cooperation with the city. And anybody who's ridden a bike up or down the corridor knows that a lot of the problems are not specific to the DCR controlled corridor itself, but the crossings, where you're crossing streets that are under the jurisdiction of the city of Boston. So there's, several of them that are dangerous, and signal timing issues and stuff like that. And I think they are, the city of Boston is keen on working with DCR with respect to the recommendations in the master plan, which include at least at 2 or 3 places raised crosswalks and better signage that a trail, a heavily used trail, is crossing the street. So I think I expect that over the coming few years, we'll see more stuff from the city of Boston that will enhance the experience of using the corridor paths. I'm less familiar with the Greenway aspect, which is a piece of path that will be developed along the east side of the corridor, parallel to the existing path. This piece would connects Jackson Square to Atherton Street eventually.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And so this is something that, with some of the new buildings, JPNDC and the other partners are putting this up as part of their building on that side of the train. And then there's also proposal, depending on leases and stuff, proposals to see about, more pathways to Kelly Rink, which would add connectivity that would be really helpful. So there's been just like a lot of really increased conversations about pathways on that side of the Orange Line. But this Greenway is real, and that was a groundbreaking event that Jenny, Fred, I don't know, a few others may have attended.
No, Fred's been very active in advocating for these alternative pieces of the corridor path. And he can't make it couldn't make it to tonight's meeting, but I know he's been, very active in both behind the scenes and in person, officially advocating for this sort of stuff and offering suggestions to improve the plans that some of the designers had come up with. So that's, I think that's, we're making some progress there as
Yep.
well, which will
Yeah.
make everything more useful.
Yeah. And that actually brings us up to just a couple of photos, and then that, we'll close out the slideshow and just some general, thoughts about what we're doing this year. And the election, of course. So Tracy, thank you. You always have the best eye for just like gorgeous moments. So just a couple of photos to enjoy. These are actually, Scott shared these from the dog park. One of the big action plan items will be moving ahead on a JP dog park. And so not having a photo of that, put in photos of the South End dog park. Couple of Tracy's photos, just for no reason, but because we needed to see these photos. And just a couple more of United South End. Then this is the mosaics. We in the craft table, we did mosaics for, I do this craft table every week at the cookouts at Mildred Haley. We did mosaics that went in that new garden, and then just a beautiful photo in the middle there. And leadership team election. And so that completes the presentation. And it brings us to the leadership team election, re-election. And you can see the slate here. Very, very proud of this slate. I think this is one of our really nice accomplishments. As you can see, the different roles, including the neighborhood representatives that we added in around 2015 that we started doing this idea, to have neighborhood representatives, and we can continue to add more. And then people who have different roles. And most exciting is we get to vote on Sabine. Well, we basically get to vote on the whole slate. So anyone want to make a motion or any other such thing?
Are we allowed to make a motion if we're included on the slate?
Yep.
I move that we accept the slate of leadership team members as proposed.
I second that motion.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yay. Okay, thank you.
I
Yep.
don't know, who can vote?
You can vote.
Okay, well, aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Thank
We
you.
have ID.
Thank you. Yep. And Carolyn, hopefully you're still with us. So you, if you ever aspire.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, anyone who participates in meetings, we actually updated our bylaws some years ago, and anyone who participates in meetings can vote. And we haven't had any really contentious votes. So it hasn't been an issue, but if we ever did, it would be based on being, you can't just pop in and vote no on something and leave, but if you're here and you're part of it, you can vote. So yeah, thank you. And thank you to everybody who is willing to be willing to serve. And it is a good thing. All right, I stop share and let's see the time. So just basically at this point, we don't have any other, unless we have any events coming up or anything, general comments or strategies or things that you wanted to talk about. I am going to turn off the recording, just because we can do like miscellaneous items, and I'll cut off the last minute here. Let's pause, stop recording and stop recording.